Hi, I'm Glenn Hughes.
And I'm Ed Buzio.
For 3 decades, I've been working inside a publicly traded company.
And for over a decade, I've been an entrepreneur supporting companies like Glenn's from the outside.
In this series, we look at the problems and challenges of the modern workplace
and provide our ideas and advice
from the inside
and out.
Every morning, my email box is filled with notices from vendors who want to help me solve the millennial problem. So Ed, why should I be terrified of millennials?
Well, some of us would like you to buy our solutions, and that's the answer. In seriousness, I don't want to say there's nothing to it, but let me start with what I usually say, which is consultants sell things, and old people not liking young people is a time-honored tradition, and millennials is a good label for old people not liking young people that we can attach a product to and sell to you. So while I don't think there's nothing to it, I advocate for something between skepticism and extreme skepticism with the notion that you can take two populations, separate them entirely by age, and do something to one that you shouldn't do to the other and make the world better. That's a little dicey.
Sold. How much are you going to charge me?
For that?
I'm with you. I think abstractions are useful. The world's complex. You know, my company has 5,000 people in it. The idea of micromanaging 5,000 people at the CEO level is debilitating. And so this idea that you can talk about people as engineers versus finance, or introverts versus extroverts, or baby boomers versus millennials has some value and some truth to it.
Well, let me play the other side of that, which is there's definitely some truth to it. I mean, if I look at how my parents grew up and how my son is growing up, the world is different, the context is different. Obviously, they're having different experiences, so there's got to be some differences. So it can't all be false. But go ahead.
So I think it's useful to learn about it. I do think it's scary and disabling to assume there's a millennial problem or to assume that you have to do something very different. My colleagues and I were at a conference, a learning event a couple of years ago, where an expert on generations spoke for about an hour and described what was the difference between a baby boomer, a Gen X, a Gen Y, a millennial. And when she finished, my boss at the time turned around and said, by your description, Glenn's a millennial.
You're younger than you look.
I have all the behaviors and idiosyncrasies of a millennial. So I do think is that useful?
Well, and here's what drives me crazy is those experts sometimes will say, you know, millennials need structured goals, and millennials need to have like clear expectations, and you know, millennials want to work so their work makes a difference, not just in a horrible job forever. And I go,
I am a millennial.
Everyone's a millennial by that definition, right? I mean, who doesn't need goals in management?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot that gets sort of stapled onto that really is inappropriate to the labeling.
I think some of the useful differences are obviously technology, and we can see that the way that younger people have grown up with technology, they have less concerns about privacy. They're much more open to sharing and things like that. I mean, those are probably useful trends in an abstract to be aware of and to be sensitive to, but I'm not sure that I would use those as a way to change my management style dramatically.
Well, and there's another problem too, which is we know from research that labeling is the wrong behavior. In other words, even with a behavioral instrument or something, if I label you as a red square or whatever the tool is, what that does is turn off the part of my brain that actually pays attention to what you're doing, and I just immediately respond from the label. And so I think there's sort of a bad side to this idea of, let me tell you about millennials, because then I'm encouraging managers to turn off their brain and do what the book says instead of what the person in front of them is presenting. So I think that's a key thing to watch out for.
There's one other point I would caution people about, and that's that in our workplace, which is very multi-ethnic, I would caution people against saying that a 22-year-old Chinese is the same as a 22-year-old Indian or the same as a 22-year-old American, whatever that is. The economic realities, the cultural realities, someone who's a millennial in China may actually act more like a boomer from an American culture because of the family values and all the things that existed, there's actually closer parallels. So I think you have to be very careful about those types of assumptions.
So as a consultant, I'm tempted to now make a big matrix about age and ethnic demographics and sell you that matrix. But instead,
and introversion, extroversion.
It's a 4 or 10 dimensional thing. I can get a lot of money for that.
I'd pay a lot more for that than just the one.
And it would be just as useless once you labeled someone, your brain would still turn off. So instead of doing that, let's ask these guys.
What's up with millennials?